I'm Ethan, a 32-year-old school teacher from New Orleans. Ever since I was a little boy, clowns filled me with dread. One rainy evening, while passing by an old abandoned circus on the city's edge, I heard strange, twisted laughter echoing in empty halls. In that darkness, I saw a clown with vacant eyes and a smile that hid a terrible secret. Even now, a far-off giggle sends shivers down my spine, reminding me that a smile can be deadly. I remember my childhood nights in a modest home near the French Quarter, where every shadow seemed alive. Growing up, I always avoided birthday parties and fairs, fearful of the painted faces and exaggerated grins. My heart raced at the mere sight of a clown costume in a store window. The fear felt real and close, like a secret whisper only I could hear. Even as a young child, I sensed something wrong about those who pretended to be happy. A few years ago, I found myself wandering near an old circus ground on the outskirts of New Orleans. The abandoned tents and creaking metal structures told stories of long-forgotten shows. As I stepped inside the dilapidated big top, an unsettling silence fell over me. Then, in a far corner, a burst of eerie, distorted laughter shattered the stillness. It was as if the very walls were speaking a language of dread that no one else could understand. In the gloom, I saw him. A clown with a blank, haunting stare and a smile too wide for comfort. His face, half hidden in shadow, sent a wave of terror through my body. I could not move, and time seemed to freeze as that sinister grin burned into my memory. The laughter faded, but its echo lingered, embedding itself in my soul and setting the stage for horrors that I would face in the days to come. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the past was chasing me. Each day, while teaching, in a small New Orleans classroom, I would catch myself glancing over my shoulder, expecting that twisted laugh to echo in the hallways. My friends dismissed my fears as memories of an overactive imagination, but deep down, I knew something dark had followed me home. Every quiet moment was a reminder of the terror that lurked in abandoned places. I began to piece together old local legends of the circus and its mysterious closure decades ago. Rumors told of a performer who vanished after a show, leaving behind nothing but a disturbing mask and a trail of cursed laughter. I spent evenings at the public library in the Garden District, poring over yellowed clippings and faded photographs. The more I learned, the more I sensed that the story of that eerie clown was entwined with my own fate, as if our lives were destined to meet again. Late one night, while grading papers under a single lamp, I heard a familiar sound, a soft, chilling giggle that came from somewhere in the dark. My heart pounded as I remembered that dreadful encounter. In that moment, I felt the invisible grip of terror tighten around me, leaving no doubt that the past had returned to reclaim its secret. I knew then that the mystery of the abandoned circus was far from over, and that I was now part of its cursed legacy. Days turned into restless nights as the memory of that haunted clown invaded my thoughts. I started having vivid dreams where I walked through abandoned carnival grounds, the air heavy with the scent of stale popcorn and fear. In these dreams, I saw flickering lights and heard the distant sound of calliopes playing a sorrowful tune. Each dream felt like a warning, urging me to uncover the truth behind the laughter that haunted me so relentlessly. Determined to face my terror, I decided to return to the old circus ground. The journey took me through familiar back streets of New Orleans, past lively jazz clubs and quiet historic neighborhoods. Despite the warm night air and the comforting sounds of the city, an inexplicable chill ran down my spine. The further I went, the more I realized that every step brought me closer to a secret buried in the ruins of a forgotten past. A secret that might be better left undisturbed. Standing, once again beneath the decaying tent, I felt a surreal mix of dread and curiosity. The circus, though empty, seemed to whisper untold stories with every creak of its frame. I walked slowly, my eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Then, out of the silence, that familiar laugh returned, a soft, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. It was a clear sign that the horrors I sought were not just relics of memory, but living nightmares waiting to be understood. My visits to the abandoned circus grew more frequent, each time uncovering a new piece of the puzzle. I spoke with locals in the Marigny area who remembered the circus from long ago. They told tales of a performer known as the Jester, whose fate was shrouded in mystery and sorrow. Their words painted a picture of a man who was never meant to entertain, but to haunt, leaving behind a legacy of fear. I realized that my encounter was more than a random event. It was a connection to a tragic history. Late one evening, as I explored a forgotten storage room behind the circus grounds, I found remnants of a tattered costume and a faded photograph of a smiling clown. The image, though worn by time, held an eerie resemblance to the figure I had seen so many nights ago. My hands trembled as I touched the fabric, feeling an inexplicable chill that surged through me. It was as if the item carried the sorrow and malice of its former owner, binding me closer to the cursed past. I left the storage room with more questions than answers, my mind buzzing with dark possibilities. The discovery intensified my determination to unravel the truth behind the Jester and his tragic end. As I walked back through the empty circus grounds, the air grew colder and the laugh of that phantom clown echoed once more, stronger and more insistent than ever. I knew then that I was stepping into a world where reality and nightmare blended into one terrifying story. In the final days of my search, I felt the weight of destiny upon me. The cursed circus had become a part of who I was, and the sinister laugh that haunted my life was now a constant companion. I gathered every scrap of evidence, every whispered legend, and every fearful memory, determined to confront the darkness once and for all. The city of New Orleans, with its rich history and mysterious soul, seemed to watch silently as I prepared for the ultimate encounter. One stormy night, under a sky filled with flickering lightning, I returned to the heart of the abandoned circus. With trembling hands, I stepped into the center ring, where the echoes of past performances still lingered. In the midst of the silence, the clown emerged again, this time bolder and more terrifying than ever. His eyes, empty yet full of unspoken grief, met mine as if he carried the sorrow of countless lost souls. In that moment, I realized that the curse was not his alone. It was a burden shared by all who dared to remember. Now, as I write these words, I still hear that ghostly laughter. In my mind, the encounter has changed me forever, leaving a mark that no time or light can erase. I share my story not for sympathy but as a warning. Beware the smiles that hide dark secrets. The abandoned circus and its tortured spirit remind me daily that some memories are best left buried, and some secrets are too terrifying to uncover. My name is Michael, a 35-year-old event planner from Atlanta, Georgia. I never imagined that a simple invitation to a child's party would spiral into a living nightmare. As laughter filled the room that fateful evening, I noticed something off, a faded, almost ghostly clown moving with silent steps among the guests. His penetrating gaze stirred long-buried memories of darkness. Even now, each distant, eerie giggle sends shivers through my body, a constant reminder of that terrifying night. I still recall the day I received the invitation. It arrived in a plain envelope marked with a small, hand-drawn smile, a detail that sent an inexplicable chill down my spine. Despite my misgivings, I accepted the request to help organize the party, thinking my expertise could smooth over any oddities. The venue was a rented hall in a modest Atlanta suburb, decorated with bright balloons and cheerful streamers. But beneath the surface of the laughter and joyful chatter, a sense of foreboding had begun to grow inside me, like a whisper warning of something sinister hidden in plain sight. That evening, as I oversaw the final preparations, I noticed the children's excitement start to wane. Their gleeful shrieks gave way to uneasy glances and murmurs. Then, among the costumed entertainers, I saw him, a clown with makeup so faded it looked more like a mask of sorrow than cheer. He moved quietly between clusters of giggling kids, his eyes locked on something beyond the festivities. I couldn't shake the feeling that his presence was deliberate, as if he had come not to entertain but to remind us of a dark secret that lurked in every shadow. As the party progressed, I found myself drawn to the eerie figure. While others focused on the games and laughter, my attention was fixed on that silent wanderer. The more I observed him, the more I sensed an unnerving familiarity in his hollow stare. Every time he passed near, the room seemed to dim ever so slightly, and a strange chill filled the air. I began to wonder if this clown was merely a performer, or something far more sinister, haunting the edges of our seemingly ordinary celebration. After the party, I couldn't shake the unsettling memory of that encounter. In the days that followed, I kept replaying the night in my mind, trying to understand the oddities that had slipped beneath the surface. I visited the hall again to check on leftover decorations and stray balloons, hoping to find an explanation in the quiet aftermath. Yet, as I walked among the empty chairs and silent corridors, I felt as if the echoes of that night were calling me back, urging me to remember something I had long forgotten. I started asking around among the staff and local neighbors about the mysterious entertainer. Whispers and hushed stories emerged about a clown who had once performed at a long-gone circus in the outskirts of Atlanta, a circus that closed abruptly amid unexplained events. An old caretaker recalled seeing a similar figure roaming the abandoned grounds, his eyes reflecting an unfathomable sadness. The more I listened, the more I realized that the party might have been an unintentional meeting point for a ghost from a troubled past, a phantom whose sorrow was as palpable as the terror he instilled. Nightmares began to plague my sleep. In my dreams, I wandered deserted carnival grounds, following the sound of a faint mocking laugh that led me deeper into darkness. I saw fleeting images of a worn-out tent and a lonely stage where a clown, disfigured by time and misery, performed his eternal silent act. Each morning I awoke with sweat on my brow and a lingering dread, as if the boundary between my waking world and that haunted memory was slowly dissolving, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. Determined to confront this mystery head-on, I returned to the old circus grounds mentioned by locals. With a mix of apprehension and resolve, I drove out to a deserted lot on the edge of Atlanta, where nature had begun reclaiming the remnants of faded tents and rusted rides. Every step I took was accompanied by the rustle of dry leaves and the distant echo of a laugh that might have been imagined. The scene was eerily quiet, yet I felt the heavy weight of unseen eyes watching from the dark corners of forgotten history. Inside one of the derelict structures, I discovered relics of a past that seemed almost otherworldly. Torn posters, broken props, and a single tattered costume piece lay scattered on the floor. The faded colors of the fabric and the brittle texture of the paper hinted at years of neglect and sorrow. I held a small worn button from the costume in my hand, its surface cold and strangely familiar. In that moment, I sensed that the circus, with its lost dreams and hidden tragedies, was speaking to me, a silent narrative of pain and mystery that refused to be buried by time. As I left the ruins, the wind carried with it a soft, unsettling giggle that made my heart pound. I knew that I was not alone. Somewhere, the spirit of that haunted clown was lingering, tethered to the fragments of his forgotten life. I couldn't shake the feeling that my presence had stirred something deep and dangerous, an echo of a story that was desperate to be told. With every mile I drove back to Atlanta, the memory of that laugh grew stronger, a constant reminder that some pasts are better left undisturbed. Back in Atlanta, life resumed its routine, but the night of the party lingered like a dark shadow. My days were filled with work and normalcy, yet I found my thoughts drifting back to that eerie clown. I started receiving strange phone calls, a series of quiet, scratchy messages with no words, just an occasional distorted giggle that froze me in place. I even noticed small, inexplicable details at my workplace. A balloon here, a stray piece of confetti there, as if the spirit of that night was weaving its way into my everyday. Unable to ignore these signs, I began piecing together more fragments of the mystery. I revisited old files and local archives, uncovering news clippings and faded photographs of a traveling circus that had once toured through Georgia. Among the articles was a mention of a clown whose tragic disappearance had haunted the circus's final days. The details were scarce, but the tone was unmistakably somber, a tale of loss and regret masked behind a painted smile. Each discovery deepened the chill in my heart, confirming that what I had experienced was far from a mere coincidence. One rainy evening, as I sat in my modest apartment in a quiet Atlanta neighborhood, I heard it again, the soft, deliberate giggle echoing through the halls. It wasn't coming from outside, but from somewhere within the building, as if the very walls were complicit in the haunting. I followed the sound, each step heavy with dread, until I reached an old storage closet. There, in the dim light, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure disappearing around a corner. In that instant, I knew that the ghostly presence was not confined to memories. It was here, in my own world, ready to reclaim a story long forgotten. In the final confrontation, I felt the full force of the past colliding with my present. Determined to end the torment, I resolved to face the apparition head-on. One stormy night, I returned to the party hall where it all began, determined to unearth the truth behind the mysterious clown. The rain hammered against the windows, the low murmur of thunder echoing the rhythm of my racing heart. I set up my camera and recorder, desperate to capture any sign of the spectral visitor that had haunted my nights and invaded my dreams. As midnight approached, the atmosphere grew oppressive and heavy. In the dim light of flickering bulbs, I saw him once more, a figure emerging from the shadows with a presence that defied logic. This time, I followed without hesitation, my fear mingled with a grim resolve. The clown moved with an otherworldly grace, leading me through corridors of memories and forgotten pain. Every step brought me closer to the truth, a dark secret of a man lost to grief and tragedy, whose existence had become a curse upon those who remembered him. Now, as I recount this tale, the echoes of that terrible night still haunt me. The ghostly laughter, the flicker of a faded smile, they are reminders that some invitations open doors to horrors we can scarcely comprehend. I share my experience as a warning. Be wary of what seems innocent and cheerful, for hidden beneath may lie a history of sorrow and evil. The memory of that haunted clown is forever etched in my soul, a spectral reminder that the past never truly dies. It only waits, silently, in the shadows. My name is Andrew, a 40-year-old mechanic from Chicago. One violent, stormy night, seeking shelter from the howling wind and lashing rain, I stumbled upon an old, abandoned circus on the city's outskirts. In a moment of desperation and curiosity, I stepped inside its crumbling structure. There, in the flicker of lightning, a solitary clown emerged from the darkness. His grotesque smile and eyes filled with sorrow and fury etched a memory into my soul, a memory that would haunt my every dream ever since. I remember that night as if it were yesterday. I had been driving through empty back roads near Chicago when the storm forced me to pull over. The rain was relentless, and the wind seemed to carry whispers of forgotten tales. In the distance, a dim light caught my attention, a relic of a circus long abandoned. Compelled by a mix of fear and fascination, I parked my car and ventured toward the derelict building. Each step on the muddy path echoed in the silence, amplifying my nervous heartbeat as I approached the worn entrance, unsure of what awaited me inside. Inside the circus, the air was thick with decay and memories. The faded red and blue canvas, once vibrant with laughter and joy, now hung tattered and ghostly in the dark. Shadows danced across broken seats and scattered debris as I moved slowly, trying to piece together the fragments of a lost past. Then, in the midst of this desolation, I noticed a faint light, a single bulb flickering above a makeshift stage. The atmosphere was heavy with a sense of inevitability, as if the building itself mourned the souls it once sheltered. I felt an inexplicable pull, like I was destined to confront whatever haunted these ruins. As I neared the stage, a sudden chill gripped me. There, emerging from a corner of darkness, was a figure I'd never forget. A clown with a ghastly smile, carved in pale makeup, illuminated briefly by a flash of lightning. His eyes, deep pools of sorrow and seething anger, locked onto mine for a heart-stopping moment. In that instant, time seemed to freeze, and the silence was pierced by a low, echoing chuckle. I stood paralyzed, caught between the urge to flee and the morbid need to understand the tragic story behind that forlorn jester. The encounter left me rattled, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the clown's presence was no mere accident. Over the following days, every dark corner of Chicago whispered fragments of that night back to me. I returned to the outskirts, seeking clues among the remnants of the old circus. In the dusty files of a local historical society, I uncovered scattered reports of a traveling show that met a mysterious end. Rumors spoke of a clown whose soul had been tormented by loss and rage, forever condemned to wander among the ruins, and stormy nights, his laughter echoing as a lament for broken dreams. Haunted by the memories, I began to piece together the tragic past of this abandoned circus. Locals recalled that decades ago, the show had dazzled audiences with its brilliance, only to be marred by a series of unexplained disappearances and calamities. One elderly man, his voice trembling with recollection, described a performer known as the Jester, whose eyes held an endless sadness and fury. His words painted a picture of a clown who had once been adored, only to be consumed by personal tragedy and revenge. The more I learned, the more I sensed that my fateful encounter was intricately tied to a sorrowful history that demanded to be remembered. Late at night, as storms battered my small apartment in Chicago, I would lie awake listening to the distant roll of thunder. In those moments, the memory of that ghostly laugh returned, more insistent and melancholic than ever. It was as if the clown spirit was reaching out, trying to warn me of something buried deep in the past, a secret that spanned generations and transcended the boundaries of time. The haunting sound seeped into my dreams, mingling with the drumming rain outside, leaving me with a lingering dread that I could not escape, even in the light of day. Driven by a mix of dread and curiosity, I decided to face the lingering specter head-on. Armed with nothing more than a flashlight and a notebook, I ventured back to the derelict circus on another stormy night. The journey felt surreal, as if the very roads had transformed into corridors of memory leading to that forgotten place. The building, silhouetted against the lightning-lit sky, exuded an aura of despair and regret. Every creak of its broken structure and every gust of wind through shattered windows seemed to whisper secrets of past sorrow and unhealed wounds. Inside the abandoned circus, I retraced my steps from that fateful night, each footstep stirring, echoes of laughter and tears long past. In one dusty corner, I discovered remnants of old costumes and faded photographs pinned to a decaying board. Among them was a portrait of the clown, the Jester, with his eyes full of unspeakable pain. The image sent shivers down my spine as I examined it under the trembling beam of my flashlight. It felt as if the portrait was a window into the soul of a man who had suffered immensely, his spirit forever bound to the tragic memories of a once glorious spectacle. As the storm raged outside, I sat amidst the relics, absorbing every detail, in a desperate attempt to understand the haunted past. The sound of distant thunder merged with a soft, sorrowful giggle that seemed to come from within the walls themselves. In that moment, I realized that the clown was more than a ghostly apparition. He was a manifestation of lost hope and deep-seated anguish. His presence was a stark reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of beauty and laughter, a darkness that could reach out and grab hold of any soul daring enough to uncover it. Determined to break free from the grip of these relentless nightmares, I sought a final confrontation with the ghost of the abandoned circus. I arranged to return on the darkest of nights when the storm was at its peak and the winds howled like tormented spirits. Standing before the decaying facade, I felt both dread and an unyielding resolve to face the spectral clown one last time. The air was electric with anticipation, charged with memories of sorrow and the weight of secrets that demanded release. Every step toward the building felt like a journey deeper into a labyrinth of pain and forgotten tragedy. Inside, the darkness was complete, pierced only by intermittent flashes of lightning that revealed fleeting glimpses of the ruined interior. I made my way to the central tent area, the heart of the long-abandoned circus. There, in the center of the space, the silence was shattered by a sudden, chilling laugh that sent a tremor through my body. The clown emerged once again from the shadows, his figure outlined by the stark light of a lightning bolt. His eyes, those deep, haunted eyes, seemed to communicate a tale of unbearable loss, pleading for recognition and absolution from a past that refused to be forgotten. In that final heart-stopping moment, I realized that confronting the specter was not about banishing him, but about understanding the profound tragedy behind his existence. I reached out not to attack, but to offer a silent acknowledgement of his pain. As quickly as he had appeared, the clown faded back into the darkness, leaving me with the echo of his sorrowful laugh and a heavy, lingering sense of melancholy. That night, as I drove away from the cursed circus, I knew that his presence would forever be etched into my memories, a reminder that some wounds in the past can never truly heal, and some spirits are destined to wander in eternal sorrow. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to stay informed when the next video comes out. And tell me, what did you think of today's stories? See you in the next video.